Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be tier ranking all of the 2020 releases that I have read and ranking them from my favourites to the ones that I do not recommend. And I saw this video on Angela from Literature Science Alliance's channel. She's the inspiration for so many of my videos. So if you haven't checked out Angela's channel, then I would definitely recommend it. And I thought it was actually a really good idea to look at 2020 releases instead of the 2021 releases, because I've had the time to actually read quite a few 2020 releases. I'm sure there's loads more that I will continue to read into the future. But actually having had, well, nearly 2 years between the ones that came out at the very beginning of 2020 and a year between the ones that have come out at the very end of 2020, it's given me a lot more time, whereas there's going to be 2021 releases that are continue to come out now and I don't have the time to read them just yet, or I haven't just got to them. So actually it's more beneficial to talk about all of the ones from last year that I've managed to read. And in total I have 41, I believe, 2020 releases to talk about today. So I did not realise I'd read that many releases from last year. Like, that isn't quite a lot of books that came out last year that I have read over the past 2 years. So, well, like 20 books each year that I read from that year. I don't know, it just seems like quite a lot for over 40 books from 2020. I don't know, I don't have like a desire to prioritise reading new releases or reading backlist titles. I just read what sounds interesting to me, and I guess with the marketing that goes on for new releases, these are the ones that I see all the time, and I'm like, oh, okay, guess I'm reading a 2020 release, and I don't even realise it. Like, I was going through the list and I don't even realise which ones are new releases and which ones aren't. Like, that is what we were doing. I've not done a tier ranking video before, so hopefully the technology behaves and does what I want it to do, because I don't know what I'm doing. The way that I have ranked them, or I've created 5 tiers, I've got best of the best, so all-time favourites, would strongly recommend the best, the absolute best. I've got so good, so if picture Alan going, so good guys, so good, so that's my next one. Like, they're not quite my favourites of all time, but they are so good. We have great, so I liked them, like, I liked them. We have fine, so it was just fine, like, it was fine, like, nothing to write home about, just absolutely fine. And then we have meh. So the ones that I would not recommend, they were just not for me. Okay, I guess we are go. So A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I think this one is fine. I think it's fine. There are elements that I really like, there's elements that I don't like, so it's fine. I am continuing the series. Like, I don't think it's a bad series necessarily. I don't think it's like an amazing book. So I think I'll put that in fine. You Deserve Each Other. I'm gonna put that one in meh. I just didn't really connect to the characters. Like, I just got annoyed with them not communicating. I was like, just communicate, talk to each other. Like, it was fun. It was like a quick read, but I was like, just talk. Miscommunication trope at its worst. Crescent City. I'm gonna put that in so good. Not quite in best of the best. I feel like I'm gonna reread this in maybe January, maybe December. I'm going to reread it, and maybe it will get I feel like it could be in best of the best. I feel like it could be up there. But for now, I think I'm going to put it in so good. And then potentially on reread, I think it could move up, because I did really like that book. I did really like it. But I just feel like it would need that reread to get into the best of the best. No One Is Watching by Elisa Cole. I just read this one actually, and I think I'm going to put it in fine. It was so close. It was so close to being great, but I was disappointed in the ending. The ending did not match the rest of the book. It was like a completely different tone to the rest of the book. It just did not match it at all, and so that ending really let it down. Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. So I've got Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and I've got From Blood and Ash. So From Blood and Ash, I'm going to put in so good. Behind Crescent City, yeah, definitely. From Blood and Ash, I just devoured it. I devoured that book. I just could not stop reading. I really just could not stop reading it. I was like addicted. I was so addicted. And the thing is, I just really liked the development of the characters and the way that it all started off. I have a whole gush video on this series. And then Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I think, was really good. Like, it was in the same vein as From Blood and Ash. I think it does have a little bit of a slower paced. So it's going to be at the top end of great, because I don't think it was quite as good as From Blood and Ash. And then we have 2 Fortuna Sworn books. We have Restless Slumber and Deadly Dreams. I think I'm going to put them both in fine. Restless Slumber I liked more than Deadly Dreams, definitely. So maybe like, go on. Maybe like that. Like Restless Slumber I think was a pretty good book. The ending, really liked it. Deadly Dreams was just a there was filler, there was slog, like nah. But I didn't like hate it. It wasn't meh or anything, but I just don't think it was great. The House in the Cerulean Sea I think is great. I think it's a great book. I didn't love it. I think for a lot of people it is on their like best of the best. They absolutely adored The House in the Cerulean Sea. For me, I really liked it. I think it was a good book. I think it was a good book, but I think it was just really cute. And I think if you're in the right headspace for cute, then it would definitely fit that. Like, you want cute, you want like a hug in book format, it will definitely fit that. But I generally prefer a little bit more world building and plot, and it was just very, I mean, I think I am a character driven reader, because if I connect to the characters, then that is what compels me to keep reading, and it's the characters that if I love a character, I am compelled to read more about them. But I don't know, I felt like it was missing something for me and what I look for in books. Supernova I think was a good conclusion to the Renegades series. Like I enjoyed the series. I just don't think it's not like a new favorite, it's not like a favorite series or anything, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything that I've read by Marissa Meyer. I've read quite a few books by her because I read the whole of the Lunar Chronicles quite a few years ago now, but I really liked them. I binged those, and I think she has a very bingeable writing style. It's very compulsively readable, but I don't think it's like a favorite. Like, I think I preferred the Lunar Chronicles to this Renegades series. Sea of Ruin, oh, that was meh. I mean, I DNF'd it. I think I was looking at this and I was like, I've only DNF'd one book this year, I believe, and that is Sea of Ruin. And I had so much, my expectations were so high because I believed it was going to be the Pirates of the Caribbean meets Bridgerton book of my dreams, and it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just repulsive. The romance was not a romance, and it should not. No. Like, I get that you can read a book with a romance that you don't necessarily support. You wouldn't want that in your life, or like if you're an adult, it doesn't matter. Like, if you know you're reading it and you're going, well, I'm not condoning this romance. Fair enough, but I could not root for the character. I could not root for it. No. She was just. This character was experiencing PTSD, but she wasn't experiencing PTSD. She should have been, but she wasn't. No. Oh, Beach Read. Is it weird that I'm putting Beach Read above Crescent City? Now it's making me question whether Crescent City should be in best of the best. Oh, I don't know. Crescent City will be reviewed. We'll review that once I've gone through a few more. Beach Read, I loved it. I have loved what I've read from Emily Henry, and I know it seems a bit weird to put it in best of the best, but I loved that book. I think it was one of the first. So I've read romance on and off for a while, but it's not like a genre that I read from all the time. Like, I am a predominantly fantasy reader, but it was one of those books that I was like, maybe I am a romance reader. Like, I loved it. I just liked the characters. I liked their dynamic. I liked their romance. I liked the way that Emily Henry interweaves like the romance with these struggles that the characters are going through. I loved it. The Atlas 6. I read this recently. It is a self-published book by Olivia Blake, and I liked it. I think it's great. It goes in the great. I don't feel like I've got like loads to say on it. Like, I found the characters had a very interesting dynamic, and I'm definitely compelled to keep reading and seeing what happens next in the series. I believe it's a trilogy. I don't know when the next book is coming out because this is self-published, but it has just been picked up by a publisher and they're republishing the first book next year. So I don't know if it's going to be another year until we get the second one. I'm not sure, but I liked it. I liked it. I think it was like really interesting character study. And so yeah, definitely intrigued to see what happens with those characters in the next book. The Damned by Renee Adier. I'm just going to put that in great as well. Like, I really liked it. I like the series. I think it's a fun series. Like, it's not doing anything inventive. It's not like anything new, but I have enjoyed the series. The City We Became, oh, that can just go and fine. I mean, I don't think it's a bad book. I really don't think it's a bad book. It's just not for me. And so I can't say, oh, I really recommend this. I can't say that it's so good or great. It's just not for me. I don't feel like it's a bad book. It's not like meh. It's just not for me. And the same with Anxious People. Yeah, probably behind there. Anxious People, it's just not for me. It's just not for me. It was just so far away from fantasy. I guess the twist after page 10, like, I'm sorry. You're working up to this. Not necessarily a twist, but a reveal that you get at like 60% of the way through the book. I guessed it after the first chapter. I was like, okay, fine. And then we get to the reveal and I was like, well, duh, obviously. Like, didn't you get that from page 10? I don't know. Like, it just, everyone, there's this whole like shock of your like perceptions and the characters. And I was like, maybe if I hadn't been so observant, then I would have enjoyed it more. I don't know if having that reveal actually be a reveal makes you like it more, but I just those sorts of real world character, day-to-day things, like seeing characters with their struggles, it was just too real. I was like, I don't care about these people. Where are the dragons? Where's the magic? However, the Midnight Library, which is, I don't know, like, it was in the same category of fiction of the Goodreads Choice Award. It is fiction, it's not fantasy. I mean, there's fantastical elements. Oh, I really, really liked it. I really, really liked it. That can, you know what, Crescent City is moving up to the best of the best. Do I want to put the Midnight Library up there? What do I want to do with the Midnight Library? The Midnight Library has Midnight Library is top of So Good. I really, really liked the Midnight Library. I really, really did like the Midnight Library. That book really stuck with me. And I would definitely recommend the Midnight Library, yeah. And so in some ways, I feel like there's a similar market for the Midnight Library and Anxious People. And for me, the Midnight Library was just hands down the winner between the two. And I did a whole like book battle because they were so close in the Goodreads Choice Award for last year. And there was only 5 votes separating them between the winner and the runner-up. And so I thought it was really interesting to compare them. So I did this book battle, which I can link. But for me, the Midnight Library was the clear winner. And then The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I think that's at the end of So Good. Like, I really liked it. I think it was a really good debut. Really interesting magic system, really interesting characters, really interesting writing style with the way that it combines first and third person for different perspectives. Really intrigued to see how it goes. I haven't read The Bone Shard Emperor comes out later this month, and I'm definitely really interested to read it. So yeah, I think that was a really good start of the series. I'm hoping that The Bone Shard Emperor lives up and matches it, because I think it was, and it's really stuck with me as well. Like I think back and I remember lots of aspects to it, and it has the cutest animal companion. The Once and Future Witches, I think, is just fine. It's at the top end of fine, but it's just fine. And the thing is, I think with The Once and Future Witches, it had so much potential, and I think the bulk of the story that is there, I think it could be up so good. Like, there is elements of that story that I think are so good, but I think it was just bogged down with wanting to portray this really feminist message. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a very feminist message. I'm not saying that. I just think that the feminist message overrode the story, and that it just got so fixated on having this really strong feminist message that was drilled into the reader that it lost the story. And so if that had been like trimmed out a bit or been a little bit more subtle, I would have enjoyed it more. And then The Traitor Queen, I read both the Bridge Kingdom. I read both the Bridge Kingdom and the Traitor Queen this year, and so the Traitor Queen, I guess, was the one that came out in 2020, and I really liked the duology. I think this was a really solid second book in the duology. I know that the series, or Daniela Jensen, is continuing in the world with another pair. And it is, I guess, going to continue a little bit because it's going to continue after the events of this duology, but these characters is all wrapped up, so that's why I count it as like a duology and not like a series. And I think it was a really solid duology and a really solid second book, and I really liked the themes in it. I really liked the tropes that were used. So yeah, I just think it was a great book. I love Holidays. Oh, that's meh. Not quite as meh. There we go. In between, You Deserve Each Other and Sea of Ruin. So oh, it's funny seeing how I can have like a romance in the best of the best, but I could also have all these romances all at the bottom. Like it's you don't really land in the middle with the romance, you land at the top or the bottom. And yeah, Love Horror Loser, it was just a no. I mean, I finished it, so it's better than Sea of Ruin. I don't know whether Tessa Bailey has this thing with using these terms of endearment, and I'm like, this is not a term of endearment, it's just cringy, it just repulses me, like no. So and I think she writes very physical relationships as opposed to emotional relationships, and I much prefer to see the emotional attachment between two people as opposed to just seeing that physical relationship. And then Ring Shout by Pete Jelly Clark. There we go. Yeah, I think it was a great book. I think part of me would like to reread Ring Shout. I read it earlier this year. I read it for my 24-hour readathon that I did. And I read it on audiobook, and I think I would have benefited from reading it physically and having it in front of me. And so I think it was a good audiobook. I think that the narrator did a really good job with the story. I think it was a good audiobook, but I feel like that might have hindered my enjoyment of the story. I find that with fantasy, I much prefer to read it physically, and it's more like fantasy horror this. But for audiobooks, I'm much better reading things that are like non-fiction or romance, and then leaving my fantasy as being read with my eyes, or like eyes and audio together. But I feel like if I reread it, I might like that one more, and it might move up the list. But for now, it's just in great, in the middle of great. Shorefall. No. Oh, actually, yeah, we'll go there. I really like the Foundryside series. So I've read Foundryside and Shorefall, and I'm really looking forward to the third book, which I believe comes out in June. I'm really looking forward to it. But I really liked Shorefall. I think it was a great second book. It's just the characters in this. I love the characters. I just love them. I love the development. I love seeing more about the history of the world and seeing like where the lore comes from and what's going on and the development, and just seeing what was, I don't know, like, I think it was well written. I just love the characters. I think it's a really interesting magic system, and well, yeah, I really like it. I really like Robert Jackson Bennett's writing. I really enjoyed his Divine Cities series and Foundryside, and would definitely be more interested in reading whatever he comes out with next. So yeah, really good. Sky Beyond the Storm, where do I want to put you? I think it goes in great. It's just, oh no, it's just, where does it go in great? I think I'm going to put it there. This is the fourth book in the Ember in the Ashes series. I loved Ember in the Ashes. I absolutely loved that first book. That first book is my favourite in the series, hands down. I've read that book a few times now, and I just love it. I eat it up, like completely. I just completely haven't adored the first book, but for me, the rest of the series doesn't live up to that first book. I think for some people, the series gets better. For some people, like, the back end of the series is even better than the first book. But for me, that first book was just so compulsively readable. I just had this desire to keep reading it. And I think it was this fourth book is a good end to the series. I think it's a solid end to the whole series. But I think I just didn't love it. And I don't feel like it's very memorable. And there is this plot convenience at the end, and it's a really big convenience, and I'm like, oh, why did you do that? If I Never Met You is another romance, and I think this one's pretty good, actually. Where do I want to put it? It feels a bit hard to rate this one, because like, compared to everything else that's in this middling section, it's a romance, so it's very different it's very hard to compare it to everything else. I'm like, well, you're very different to this, so you're in a very different, like, I don't know, category in my head. No, I don't think it's great, because I don't like remember all the details of it. I read it last year, but I think it was like it was a fun romance. Like, I liked it, and I liked that it was like older characters. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, actually, I really liked that one. But no, we'll put it at the top end of fine. We'll put it there. A Heart So Fierce and Broken. This was also fine, but I think this was more like their fine, lower down the list of fine. So A Heart So Fierce and Broken is the second book in the A Curse So Dark and Lonely series by Bridget Kemmerer. A Curse So Dark and Lonely I really like. That first book I think is really, really good, and maybe you should read it as a standalone because I have read the second and the third book, and I mean they're both fine, but that's it, they're just fine, whereas the first book is so good. So I think that's the distinction, that like the first book is so good and then the second and third book are just fine. And it's weird because I feel as though the character that's the focus of the second book I really, really liked, so I don't know why his story wasn't so much of a favourite, but it just wasn't, unfortunately, and so I'm just gonna put it in. It was fine. Disfigured, I can't remember the full name of the title, by Amanda Leduc. I recently just read this one. It's a non-fiction book. I don't really know how to rate this because it's a non-fiction book on disability. It's very different to the fantasy. It's very hard to like give it a place. I think I'm just gonna put it in great. Oh no, not fine. No. Oh dear. Up you go to great. It's really, it's weird to put it in a place and compare it to everything else. I mean, I think that random placement in great, I will keep it there. Like, it's not a favourite book or anything, but I found it really interesting. I found it definitely like helped me explore a lot of my thoughts towards fairy tales and the nostalgia that I have for them whilst also thinking about them more critically. But it is just really weird to try and rate it compared to the fantasy that it's surrounded by. Moving on to The Burning God. Unfortunately, that is going in at the top end of meh, because I have loved that series. I loved the Poppy War. I really liked the Dragon Republic, but The Burning God just let me down. It let me down. It so much let me down. It was so. I like the writing style. I like the characters, but I don't feel the characters were executed very well. In The Burning God, they didn't feel like the characters that we met in the first and second book. I didn't mind where we got to in the end, but I just felt like some plot points were just wrapped up in like a sentence and some weren't given the time that they deserved, and I just hoped for more. I think it was badly executed. I don't think it was plotted very well. It was so unfortunate. I just wished I had so much hope. My hopes were so high and it let me down. The Worst Best Man. This one is going to go in great, but where in great? Maybe there. I really liked it. I liked it as a romance. I find it really hard to think about romance compared to the fantasy because they're like in different categories in my brain, so it's really hard for me to think about them. But I really liked The Worst Best Man. I think it was so fun. Maybe not that quite. Yeah, we'll put it there. So I really liked it. I think it was so fun. It was a really fun read. I will just leave it at that. It was fun. The Space Between Worlds. Do I put this in meh or do I put this in fine? No, meh's a bit harsh. I'll put it in fine. But about there. I think it had such an interesting premise. It had such an interesting premise. Like the premise of Space Between Worlds, I was all here for. I think it was so interesting when you have these different worlds. You can only travel to these alternate realities if the version of you is dead in that world. Like that theme, that starter for that premise, so interesting. But the actual story and the characters we followed, not interesting. Didn't care about them. Not interesting at all. I was like, you've got such an interesting premise. Why are you following these people? Why these people? Why them? Why? No. I don't care about these people. You've got the most interesting premise there is, and you've ruined it with these characters. Heart of Flames. I think this one is really, really good. No, not fine. Great. There we go. Heart of Flames, second book in the Crown of Feathers series. I really, really liked this series, and I think the second book had a little bit of bloat in it. It was a bit of filler, but I think the overall like progression that it had for the series and where we got to, I think it was a fun read. I think it was a really great book. I think it was a really great book for the series. I liked it. Empire of Gold. Oh my god, this is best of the best. Best of the best. The best of the absolute best. The favourite of the favourite. The pinnacle of books is Empire of Gold. Oh, it's so good. So good. It's above so good. It's the best of the best. It's amazing. It's, the creme de la crop. Like, it is the pinnacle of books. Empire of Gold. Oh, S.H. Chakraborty. I need more. Oh my god. the David Bad trilogy. If you've not read the David Bad trilogy, what are you doing? Like, you should go read the David Bad trilogy. All of you that have not read the David Bad trilogy should read the David Bad trilogy and then gush about it with me, because it is the best thing ever. Like, ever. It's the best of the best. And like the characters, like by the time we got to this third book, the characters, the politics, the world, the mythology, the writing, the way it all ended, the conclusion, oh, it was just perfection. Perfection. I have a whole review of the David Bad trilogy. I did a World Hoppers video for it. I did a World Hoppers video on it. Like, I could talk about this series all day and I would not get bored. And I've now read the series 3 times. Like, I am obsessed with the series. I love it to pieces. Where Dreams Descend, I think this is at the top end of, yeah, there. It is great. I think it's just a great book. It's a great book. And I'm interested to see what happens in the second book of the duology, but I think, yeah, it's great. Like, I don't think it's a new favourite. I think it's fun. I think it was a fun story. I enjoyed it. So there we go. Credence. Oh, it's another meh. It's a meh. I think, okay, so I really liked Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. Credence, oh, I don't know. Like, I think it was just a bit too much for me. In my personal taste, it was just a bit too much. It's just a bit too much. It's just, I didn't like who she ended up with as well, you know, and with the romance. I didn't like who she ended up with. It was the worst person she could have ended up with. Like, no. Oh, and now we're on to back up to a favourite, A Time of Courage, up into Best of the Best. Yeah, I love everything John Gwynne. Like, I've talked about Empire of Gold and John Gwynne and like the David Bad trilogy, and it's those two authors were just absolute favourites for me. I love S.A. Chakraborty, I love John Gwynne. Like, those people are a master with words and plots and characters, and they just, I could just read anything that they write. Like, I love it. And so I think this was an excellent end to the Of Blood and Bone trilogy and the Banished Lands as a whole. Like, I've done discussions on like every John Gwynne book. So we do have a video on Time of Courage over on Jimmy from the Fantasy Network's channel, which I can link, about us all talking about that whole trilogy as a whole. But there are individual videos on every one of his books on each of our channels. And oh my God, oh, I just love it. I love it. And then this one, is this one Lifelike? The third book in the Lifelike series, True Life. That was it. True Life. I think this is just fine. There we go. Yeah, I think this one's fine. Like, it's fine. It was a fine series. I'm fine with it. Like, fine with it. Yeah, and the Shadows Between Us. Oh, that might be a meh. Shadows Between Us. It was a very quick read. It was fine, but the characters annoyed me. She really annoyed me. Oh, it's like she thought she was the baddest of badass people, but actually she was just a teenager. And I just wanted her to like realise that she was a teenager and just stop trying to think that she was the most badass person that ever existed. So yeah. Oh, Invisible Life, Valley of the Road, Best of the Best. Oh, I love being able to put things up into Best of the Best. Oh, that's so satisfying. Instead of trying to figure out where they fit in like fine and great, like Best of the Best. Oh, I love Daddy LaRue. I loved that book. I bawled my eyes out. That book was an emotional roller coaster to read. Oh, I loved the writing style. I know some people didn't love it as much as me, but I loved it. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but it worked for me. And so for me, it was Best of the Best. For me, I absolutely loved it. So there we go. The Devil in the Dark Water, I think I'm going to put that at the very top end of great. I loved I loved the Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I think that that one would be so good. I think this one, it was really good. It had a really spooky atmosphere of whether it was like real or supernatural, and I really liked that like twist. I really liked the setting of this boat. It felt very claustrophobic that you couldn't get off this boat. I like the historical setting. I like the characters, but I never like got super connected to any of them. And I think his endings are a little bit messy. So I didn't mind it so much in the Seven Deaths. I didn't mind that it was a slightly messy ending. I think it was quite a clever ending. Whereas this one, I was a bit like, oh, okay. I think it was good, but like, I think the ending was the weakest point of the book. And The Library of the Unwritten, this one is so good. Maybe there. I loved this book. 5 stars. I loved the characters, I loved the world, I loved it all. And then the second book was a big disappointment, but we're not talking about that one. We're talking about The Library's Unwritten, which was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Loved it. Would definitely recommend it. Yeah, I just would so, oh my god, would read it as a standalone though, not as a series, as a standalone. Such a good standalone. Amazing. And then the final one is Chain of Gold. I think I'm going to put that again in great. Chain of Gold, I really liked it. I think I would like it more if I had reread The Infernal Devices before diving into it. So I think it could move up this list if I went in with the right, like, not expectations, but the right memories. Because when I read it, my memories of the cast was a bit vague because I'd read The Infernal Devices so many years ago. So I think before I read the rest of the series, I am going to reread The Infernal Devices so I can have that all fresh in my head. And then I'm going to reread Chain of Gold, then Chain of Iron, and whatever the third book is that comes out. Because as these follow the children of the people from The Infernal Devices, I felt like I was mixing up who was who with the characters, and I just didn't get the best experience out of it. Whereas if I went in with my memories all in the right place, then that would all be great. I hope I'm happy with all of that. I hope I'm happy with where I put them. But we're just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to faff around trying to move things around slightly. Like, that is what it is. That's what my brain has all gone for. So I think there are a few that could probably move about if I reread, and if I had a different experience upon that reread. I think there could be a few slight changes. Like, I think Crescent City might go above Beach Read, potentially. I don't think it could go above Empire of Gold. That'd be very hard for anything to go above Empire of Gold. But I think like Chain of Gold could move up. Like, there are a few things in that great column that probably could go up. Yeah, probably just Chain of Gold, actually, yeah. I think Chain of Gold could go up to her So Good. And there are potentially things in So Good that could go up to Best of the Best. Maybe. But like, I think there could be some things that could be shifted around depending on if I reread or more on longevity, because some of these I read like last year, like Crescent City, and some of them I read a lot more recently. So I have those memories a lot more fresh in my head. But interestingly, really interestingly actually, the majority of those ones that are in Best of the Best and So Good, I read last year. I didn't read them in 2021. I read them in 2020. Aside from A Time of Courage, which I did read this year, and The Bone Shard Daughter. So A Time of Courage and The Bone Shard Daughter I read this year, but the other 8 I read in 2020. So is that showing that actually my favourites of the year I read as they came out. I was really interested in them, I read them straight away. And that actually the 2020 releases that I read this year that I didn't prioritise straight away, and I didn't read first thing as soon as I read them, as soon as they were published, that I didn't enjoy them so much. I don't know. Maybe there is something in that. I prioritised the ones that I was super interested in as soon as they came out. Something to think about. So those are the 41, I believe, books that my tier ranking for the 2020 releases. Let me know if you would do anything differently with this, where you would put things. If you've done anything similar, then I would love to watch it. And if you have any opinions, if you agree, disagree, if there are any 2020 releases that are not on this list that you think I should read and would enjoy, because I'm sure there are so many other 2020 releases that I have not got to. So I think we will leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!